responding to is the thinking concept of education is unreliable. I'll start out by describing the supporting claims. Her first was the banking concept of education teaches bad studying habits. She pointed out that there's assumption that the instructor knows everything about the subject, or at least has most knowledge on the subject, and that most everything the professor will say is correct, and memorization of details will be what is studied, and students will end up flushing away a lot of the information. In response to this, I will say that she provided no concrete evidence of any of the ideas behind the studying habits. It's mere assumptions being used to provide support. Also, memorization is not used by all individuals as a studying habit, but several do use it as a positive learning habit, and therefore this generalization can't be used to support the claim. The second supporting claim is that the banking concept of education supports unintelligent thought or knowledge. She was defined unintelligent as the assumption that one can converse accurately on a subject when in reality this is not so. The definition she used here is not cited with any source whatsoever, and according to several online dictionaries, including freedictionary.com, it defines unintelligent as lacking intelligence or the ability to learn and understand, which is not anything like the definition used within the claim. Also, the development of unintelligent thought does not clearly demonstrate that the banking concept is flawed or unreliable, as it merely suggests a personal behavior of the individual rather than the actual academic success. Her third, a secondary claim, was that the banking concept does not adapt to the learning styles of all individuals, including auditory, visual, and tactile. The percentages used, such as 77% of students being visual spatial learners, does not exactly reflect all of the individuals as the population used within her speech, which was the Cal Poly Pomona population. So the percentage of graduates who were employed is not necessarily correlated to the reliability of the concept, as it does not affect the manner in which people behave in the workforce, but rather the way they learn in class. Also, she used Cal Poly Pomona as a reference, being that it is a polytechnic and is known for being a hands-on learning experience. However, this does not necessarily mean that all of the faculty members within Cal Poly Pomona use the tactile learning method, but rather they can actually use the banking concept, which would relate to the success rate of Cal Poly Pomona graduates. So, according to her claim that the banking concept of education is unreliable, I have proven that her first claim has no solid concrete evidence, as do the following two. Her second claim does not clearly state any citations to help her, and her third, using the learning styles as reference, is not necessarily reflective of the entire population as a whole. Thank you.
All right, you ID the claim pretty clearly. The secondary claims, you don't preview them, but you do ID them as you get to each one, and the transitions between those points is pretty clear. On the first point, you kind of explain where you're going. It's a challenge to the evidence. On the second point, I didn't think that your definitional discussion meant much. I'm not sure what the impact it has on the argument. On the third point, it's basically a challenge to the comparison that's being made by the advocate here, and I thought you had a couple of good presses. But most of the arguments that you presented could be things that you could say immediately after the presentation. You don't really develop any independent evidence to challenge this, for instance, on the value of learning styles or the effectiveness of the tactile styles. We don't have any data on that. So just as the advocate seems to be short of evidence, you appear to be short of evidence as well. I wasn't sure where you were going on that second point, but I did think that the summary at the end of the speech made a good, clear statement of what you were trying to get across on those points, and so that kind of rescues some of the vagueness on the second and third point. All right, thank you.